Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video we want to have a look at the realistic turbulence option in Flight Simulator 2024. In fact, one of my most seen videos was the one where I talked about the realistic turbulence option in FS 2020, but ever since that a lot has changed in regards to that option, and well, today we just want to have a look at what's going on right now. So we are sitting here in the Horizon Sim 787-9 in FS24. I just really like that airplane. It's a bit of a pity that the release coincided with the PMDG 777, because otherwise it would have gotten a lot more attention than it actually did. But I still think that it is a superb freeware aircraft, and we are definitely going to fly it on the channel a little bit more in the future. Nonetheless, let's talk about the topic that we're actually here for, and that's the realistic turbulences. So people have been asking me over the past couple of weeks if I'm using that option or if I still have it on low, as that is what a couple of large developers have recommended back in the days in FS 2020, and actually still recommend to this date in FS 2024. Now, let's go ahead and have a little look here. So, first of all, yes, I am using the realistic turbulence options again. Now, where can you find that option? It's actually quite easy. So you go into the sim settings, then you go over to assistances, and over there you go down a little bit, and then you've got the turbulence option, which you can set to realistic. You have other options such as low, medium, and, well, realistic. So some developers do recommend to use the low option, and that is actually for quite a good reason. The reason is that internally, inside the flight sim, the aircraft actually do have some problems catering with the option. That's because the way how turbulence is injected into the sim is not always, let's say, 100% realistic. Now, the feeling of the turbulence is something different though. Back in the day when I created my original video, I said that, well, it's actually not too bad, and indeed it wasn't at the time. But then Asobo came along, intended to make it better, actually made it a lot worse, and the result, well, was that ultimately I ended up turning it off in FS 2020 as well. However, things have changed a little bit with FS 24. So with FS24, I just thought, well, I'm gonna give this one another try, and it was really worth it. So in FS24, the realistic turbulence option is by far not as overdone as it used to be in FS 2020. Now, I did use it ever since I'm using the simulator, and there were a couple aircraft that had some small problems with it. Mostly the A350 was one where if you've been using time acceleration, the realistic turbulence could sometimes kick off the autopilot. But apart from that, I didn't have any problems with the realistic turbulence option whatsoever in any of the add-on aircraft, even those where the developers officially recommend to turn it off. Now that's mostly Phoenix over there, and I'm sure they have their good reasons. At least personally, I couldn't find any actual problems using the option. Of course, it was a little fun occasionally if you really had to rape your stick in order to get the airplane down. Now, is that something I would call realistic? And what does realistic turbulence feel like to a pilot? Anyway, perhaps we can start with the latter topic, because that's definitely the more interesting one. So, how does turbulence feel in the real world? Well, to be honest, it's by far not as spectacular as you are probably hoping to get it. So, normally, when turbulence happens in the real world, there are only very minor control inputs required, and the airplane just keeps flying. That's for the simple fact that your airplane weighs several tons, regardless if it's a 737 at some 60 tons or an A330 at 230 tons. The plane just simply will fly through it. It has so much inertia, so much energy, that in order for turbulence to really bring you into an upset, a lot of things actually have to go wrong, and that's not usually the case. Not to say that the worst turbulence I've had in the real world was actually wake turbulence, and that one turned my aircraft like 20 degrees onto the side. Okay, that is quite a bit, I have to admit that, but then again, that's wake turbulence, that's not atmospheric turbulence. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the feelings that you will have on your controls in the real world during turbulence. And the part that I'm especially interested in here is turbulence at low levels. So basically turbulence that occurs while you're on final approach, because let's admit it, the rest of it is nice but not really relevant, is it? You guys want to do those sim flights where you can recreate your favorite pilot YouTuber just completely raping the stick. Well, first of all, I do have to unfortunately let you down here. It's not really required in any airplane to actually rape the stick, and in many cases it's just a matter of training, especially when flying Airbuses. I mean, just let go of the stick and you'll see that it will actually keep going into the right direction most of the cases. Not always, but mostly. Now, it isn't perfect, but when you let go of that stick, you'd be surprised at how stable it actually is. Nonetheless, especially for people coming from a Boeing previously, if they don't enforce that during the type rating, we can't blame the pilots, it's really down to the instructors. In any case, so when you fly a really turbulent approach, then yes, you will need some inputs on the stick, respectively on the yoke, in order to keep your aircraft going into the right direction on the approach. But again, let me zoom out a little bit so that you can see my yoke down here and so that you can see what I'm doing on it, and that's really usually all you need. So realistic turbulence in the flight sim then, is it worth giving it another try? I would absolutely say so, because it may not be 100% realistic in terms of what it can actually do, but it is just a lot better if there is something happening. And I think the amount of control inputs that I needed here in order to keep myself going straight are pretty nice in a pretty realistic manner. Therefore, it greatly enhances my fun of flying over here, even though I'm sure that some aerodynamicists will say like, nah, that's total garbage that the sim is doing. I still think it's fun. The amount of control inputs needed to keep your airplane going into the right direction are just about fine. So at this moment, unless you're flying the A350, which does have some problem with turbulence, unless you're flying that one, I think that you should absolutely give the realistic turbulence option another try. Now, if you're watching this video at a later point in time, things might have changed. Do remember that. So Asobo has really changed those options quite a bit in the past, and when I made my initial video about realistic turbulence, I really didn't have many problems with it, and then not so long ago after I released the video, Asobo totally messed it over. So there's always that possibility, but for the time being, I think it's really worth trying. And with that out of the way, I do hope you found this one interesting. Let me know if you want me to cover the topic a little bit further in depth, and most importantly, as always, be sure to comment to let me know what you think of the video and what types of future contents you might like. Thank you very much for watching. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, why not sponsor me a little coffee through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.